wiring a Les Paul or SG style guitar with a pre-made wiring harness. These harnesses are available most places you can buy guitar components these days, and the vast majority of them are made in China. However, they aren't complete, and they can't be complete, otherwise you won't be able to fit them in the guitar. So what I'll be doing today is fitting one from scratch, explaining everything right from the ground upwards. So this is a guide for absolute beginners. I'll be placing this video in a playlist of lessons just about the electrics in a standard electric guitar, and in those lessons I'll go through each component one by one, explaining what they do and how you use them. And by the end of the course you should be able to design, build, repair or modify your own electrics. However, this particular video isn't part of the course, but it would be useful to watch. I'll put a link to that playlist down below in the description. Right, let's get started. Before we get into the electrics, for anyone who hasn't already got an SG or Les Paul, here's what the actual controls should do. The wiring on a Les Paul and SG is very similar, even though the positioning isn't quite the same. What the controls do is the same. So, looking at this Les Paul body, you can see we've got two pickups, which are humbuckers, a pickup selector switch, which has 3 positions, and we've got an individual volume and tone control for each pickup. Finally, the output socket is down on the edge of the guitar. To select the neck pickup, we have the pickup selector switch in the up position or in the rhythm position. And when we're using the neck pickup, the volume and tone control are the top ones. When we use the bridge pickup, the pickup selector switch is in the down or treble position, and the bridge pickup uses the lower volume and tone controls. When the pickup selector switch is in the middle position, both pickups are selected and both sets of volume and tone controls are in use. And this is pretty much the standard setup, though you could change it if you wanted to do something different. If you want to or need to check the electrics on your guitar, you can do it quite simply by first plugging the guitar in so you can hear it, and then tapping on the pickups with a screwdriver or something magnetic. And to prevent scratching the pickups, tap on the screws or Allen bolts, whatever's there. By tapping on the pickups rather than strumming the strings, you're isolating the sound so you can hear exactly where it's coming from. What comes with a pre-built wiring loom? What comes with the pre-built wiring loom is pretty standard. However, there are variations, but I can only show you what's in front of me. The main component for the pre-built wiring is the pots. That will be the 2 volume and the 2 tone controls, and these are all mounted on a piece of perspex or with a piece of wood. And these components are all soldered together and ready to go, so they can be fitted into the guitar quite easily. You've just got to solder on the peripheral components. As well as this, you get a pickup selector switch with a choice of different coloured tips. And finally, you get a 1/4-inch output jack. Now, whilst they've provided most of what you need, you'll obviously still need the pickups. And not so obviously, there's some pieces of wire missing. To explain what wires you need, let's just take a look at what we've got. Looking at the main control plate, there's two long coaxial wires coming off it. And these are to go up to the pickup selector switch. So we've got the control plate and the wires up to the pickup selector switch, but we've got no wire to take us back from the pickup selector switch to the output. And this is the first wire you need. And it's the longest wire in the guitar. And I would recommend using screened or coaxial wire if you've got some. You'll also obviously need wires for the pickups. However, these usually come pre-attached to the pickups, so these shouldn't be a problem. However, there's another wire that's not so obvious, and it's quite often pretty much hidden. Somewhere on your guitar there's going to be a small hole that runs from where the control plate is to either the bridge or the tailpiece, and this is for an earth or ground wire. And you just need a single core multi-strand piece of wire for this. And the colour isn't really important, but if you want to be correct, it should be black or green. So, as well as what's provided, you need 2 or 3 wires. 2 wires if you're using coaxial wire from the pickup selector to the output socket, or 3 if you prefer to use single core. However, if you're doing this, I recommend you screen the guitar well. You can see that I've already screened this guitar with copper film. If screening's new to you or you'd like to know more about it, I've made a video just about screening. I'll put the link down below in the description. A basic explanation of the control circuit wiring. As you already know, there's 2 volume and tone controls, and these do exactly the same thing for different pickups. So to simplify what I'm explaining, I'll isolate one of these, so we've just got a volume and a tone control. The 2 pots or potentiometers that make up your volume and tone control are different, even though they look very much the same. If you look at the writing on the pots, you'll see one is an A500K and one is a B500K. The 500K refers to the resistance, which is 500 kilo ohms. And the A and B on the pots tells us whether the pot's log, which is short for logarithmic, or lin, which is short for linear. In the case of the volume control, it wants to be a logarithmic pot or potentiometer, and in the case of the tone control, it wants to be a linear pot or potentiometer. And sadly, just to make things more confusing, there isn't an international standard for the A and the B. So they are reversible depending on what country you're in or what country you order your parts from. A logarithmic pot refers to the behaviour where as you turn it up, it doesn't do very much at all, and then it suddenly shoots up. And this is the correct behaviour for a volume control. Whereas a linear pot, as you turn it, it keeps smoothly going up in value. And this is the best type of pot for a tone control. If you get them the wrong way around, it really does make a difference. Just as a point of interest, with this circuit, the potentiometer being used as a tone control isn't being used as a potentiometer. It's being used as a variable resistor. And what this means is there's a spare leg with nothing soldered onto it. So when you finish the job, if you notice there's 2 spare legs with nothing soldered onto them, don't worry about it. That's the way it's meant to be. And you'll find the same thing applies to the circuits in most electric guitars. I'll be making a lesson just on potentiometers for the Guitar Electrics course. So if you want to see that, take a look at the playlist, or if it's not made yet, subscribe to this video and allow notifications, and then you'll be notified when I upload it. Now, if I want to connect up a pickup to these two potentiometers, I want the signal path, or the positive, to go to the spare leg on the volume potentiometer, the B potentiometer. And I want the earth or ground to be soldered to the case of the potentiometer. And this is where the one and only complicated or confusing part of this job happens. With most humbucker pickups, you've got up to 5 wires coming out of them. And we have to try and reduce this down to 2 wires. And as well as that, just to make the job even more awkward, there isn't a standard colouring scheme for the wires coming out of the humbucker. With a lot of pickups, you'll get instructions that will tell you what the colours mean. Otherwise, you should be able to find the colour schemes online. For this demonstration, I'll obviously be using the colour scheme on the pickups I've got. And these pickups have got 5 wires. The first wire is the ground or earth, and this is a bare wire, and this is the same on virtually every make of pickups you buy. The next wire is coil 1 start, and then there's coil 1 end, and then the next wire is coil 2 start, and the final wire is coil 2 end. So to unify these 5 wires down to 2, the first thing we do is connect the start of the first coil to the ground. Then we connect the end of the first coil to the start of the second coil. Now these 2 wires don't connect to anything else, so you can tidy them up, insulate them and put them out of the way. Finally, the end of the second coil becomes the signal wire. So now we've just got a ground and a signal wire. If you've got absolutely no idea what the colours signify on your pickup, the first thing I'd do is to do a search on the internet to see if I can find that particular pickup and what the wiring means. And if the search throws up nothing, then you'll have to do some resistance tests using a meter. The first thing you want to do is put the ground out of the way, because the ground is the ground and this won't change. Then try each of the other wires 2 at a time using a meter and measure the resistance. Where you get a resistance of between, say, 3 and 8, then you've got one of the coils. If you get a resistance of 0, then you've got 1 wire from each of the coils. So what you're looking for is 2 sets of 2 wires that throw up the same resistance. And then when you curl the middle 2 together, you want it to throw up twice the resistance. One of the great things about Gibson designs is you can still access the electrics without having to take the strings off or take the guitar apart. So don't tuck the wires away where you can't access them, and then if you have got it wrong, you can try different combinations of wirings later when the guitar's together. Right, let's fit this wiring loom inside a guitar so you can see how it's done. Wiring a Les Paul style guitar with a pre-made wiring harness. Before I start, I'll just point out that the order I'm doing things in isn't necessarily set in stone. But don't start soldering anything up until you've got the wires threaded through the cavities in the guitar, for obvious reasons. The first thing I'm going to do is put labels on both the pickup wires and the wires that come off the main board for the pickup selector switch. And this is because once you push them through the guitar, it's easy to lose track of them and to solder them in the wrong order. I'm using bits of masking tape because it's easy to get off and it's easy to write on. Using the purple unicorn pen is optional. I'm speeding up the video in places to shorten it slightly and keep it from getting too boring. Now I'm going to put the earth wire from the control cavity to the tailpiece. And before I do this, I'll just strip a bit of the insulation off so that the wire makes good contact with the tailpiece inserts. And you can even put a bit of solder on the end of the wire that you're putting into the insert. Because it's slightly softer than the wire, it conforms to the shape of the insert as you hammer it in, so it gives a really good contact. Putting this insert in is my least favourite job, because with the other inserts I use wax to make them go in more easily. However, I can only put wax on one side of this insert because I don't want to break the connection between the earth wire and the insert. When I'm doing this job, I always use this bolt instead of the stud, and that's to prevent any damage to the finish of the insert or the stud itself. Whilst I'm still working on the top of the guitar, I'll put the two pickups into place as well. I put the neck pickup in first because the wire's got to go through more of the guitar, and it's made more difficult if the bridge pickup and the bridge pickup wire is in the way. Obviously, put the neck pickup by where the neck will be and the bridge pickup by where the bridge will be. And there's a right and a wrong way to put the pickups around on, so watch out for this. It's flatter on one side than on the other. The curved side is towards the centre of the guitar. As you're doing this job, it's worth feeling around in the control cavity or turning the guitar over and looking to make sure the wire's coming through. I've screwed the first pickup into place before I start putting in the second pickup, and this is to prevent it falling out as I'm trying to work on the guitar. And there's all the wires coming safely into the control cavity. I'll take these out of the way for the moment whilst I fit the controls. Before you start fitting the controls, make sure they're facing the right direction. The controls are reversible, so you can actually put them in upside down, which makes a big difference. It would put the volume and the tone on the wrong sides. You want the volume pots, or the pots marked B, facing into the guitar, and you want the tone pots, or the pots marked A, facing out of the guitar. Once you've got the pots lined up correctly, you can start fitting them. I start by taping the wire that runs to the output socket to the two long wires. This gives the wires more rigidity, so you can push them right the way through to the switch cavity. Once the wiring is in place, I can remove the pots from the plate so I can put them in the guitar. This involves undoing all the nuts first and sliding the potentiometers off the mounting plate. Remember what order the nuts and washers came off the potentiometers so you can put them back in the correct order. You might find it useful to keep the plate because at any point in the future, if you decide you want to make your own wiring harness, it's easier to mount the potentiometers to this and build it outside of the guitar and then put it in the guitar when you're finished. This particular circuit wasn't very straightforward to put into the guitar, and you might find you have the same problem. The wire going round the outside of the circuit was too tight. I don't think they'd taken into consideration the shape of the control box. So I had to unsolder one joint and then solder it on again in a different place. Once I'd fitted the controls to the guitar, I could finish off routing the wires to the output socket and also bring back the wires for the pickups. Now, if you want to be really tidy, you can cut down the wires so they fit neatly. However, if you're not 100% sure of the pickups and you feel you might want to change them, it might be worth just folding those wires up and putting them out of the way. How to wire the pickups. Trying to show what I was doing as I connected everything up just wasn't working out, so I'll do it in a graphic sense so you can see clearly what you have to do. The first thing I'll do is match up the graphic so it matches what you see in the back of the guitar. So we've got the two volume controls on the left hand side and the two tone controls on the right hand side. And looking at the volume controls, you'll notice that each volume control has got a leg free. This is where we'll want to solder the signal wires from both the pickups. And you'll remember from earlier that we'll want the signal wire from the neck pickup to go to the top volume control and the signal wire from the bridge pickup to go to the bottom volume control. And the earth wires want to be soldered to any point on the case of the potentiometer. And you can even solder it on and join onto one of the existing earths, so just soften that solder up again and introduce the new wire. Whilst you're soldering the pickup earths into place, it's a good time to solder the earth that goes to the tailpiece that we fitted earlier. And to save time, it's a good idea to twist this in with the pickup earth and then solder the two wires into place together. So, in total, you only have to solder 5 wires to the control section. That's the 2 signal wires from the pickups, and the 2 earths from the pickups, and the earth from the tailpiece. Now we move up to the pickup selector switch. How to wire the pickup selector switch. At the pickup selector switch, you should have 6 wires, or 3 coaxial wires. That's a signal wire and an earth for each of the pickups, and a signal wire and an earth for the output socket. And the pickup selector switch has got 5 connections on it. 1 on one side and 4 on the other. The first one we'll connect up takes 3 wires, and this is the one connection on its own. And all the earth wires should go to this. So that's the earth wire from pickup 1, the earth wire from pickup 2, and the earth wire for the output jack. So, looking at this side of the pickup selector switch, we've got 3 wires going to one connector. Where you've got coaxial wires, you'll have to strip them back quite far. And this is because the signal wire wants to be at the opposite side of the switch to the earth wires. On this side of the switch, we've got 4 connectors. The 2 outside connectors are for either pickup, and the 2 center connectors are both for the output jack. So you can either bend these 2 connectors together and then solder the signal wire to the output jack through the 2 connectors, or you can leave them apart and strip a little bit of extra wire for the output jack and feed that wire through the 2 holes and make 2 soldered joints. Just as long as these 2 connectors are connected together somehow. That's what's important. Now the two outer connectors are for the neck and the bridge pickup. And whichever direction the switch is pointing, that's which pickup you want to connect. So if the switch is pointing up relative to the guitar, then you want that to be the neck pickup. And if the switch is pointing down relative to the guitar, you want that to be the bridge pickup. Now, if you're not sure, you can leave a little bit of extra wire, and this will give you enough play to be able to turn the switch round if you get it wrong. Once you've soldered everything into place, you can push the pickup selector switch through the mounting hole, and then you can put the washer and nut on and bolt it down loosely so you can turn it round and align it up the way you want to before you tighten it up. And if you're putting one of the rings around the switch with the rhythm and treble on it, don't forget to put that into place as well. We've just got 2 more wires to solder now, and the job's finished. How to connect the jack plug socket. Connecting the output socket is by far the easiest part of this job, and we have to connect the signal wire to the connection that leads to the tip of the jack plug, and we have to connect the earth wire to the connection that leads to the ring or the sleeve. Once you've got these two connected and you've mounted the jack plug socket to the guitar, you're ready to do the final tests. And I'll do the same test I did earlier in this video by just tapping on the pickups to make sure they're on and off at the correct time. And as one very last test, I'll check that the volume and tone controls are doing what they should be doing. Thankfully, the electrics are working exactly as they should do, so I can put the covers back over the electrics and finish up. And that's it, the guitar's finished and ready to play. And hopefully this video will help you get your guitar finished and ready to play. If you've enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, please like, subscribe and hit the bell icon, and then you'll be notified when I upload new videos. And if you're looking for free guitar lessons, visit www.ebooks4guitar.com, and there you'll find all my video guitar lessons in order. And you can download the course book that goes with the lessons in PDF format completely free. Thank you very much for watching, and I have to give a real special thanks to all my channel members, because without their contributions I couldn't keep making videos, and I mean that sincerely. And if you'd like to consider becoming a channel member, please do so, but only if you can afford it or really want to. Just watching the videos is really helpful and helps the channel keep running. And that's it. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, bye for now.